This episode of Untold Stories is sponsored by Paraswap and Public.com. You'll hear more about them later on in this episode. What is up, everyone? I am Charlie Shrem. You are listening and watching Untold Stories, a special live edition where twice a week, now actually 3 times a week for this week, together we get to dive deep with some of crypto's most influential leaders, brightest crayons in the box, sharpest tools in the shed, those who really understand where we are right now, so we can understand where we came from, where we're now, and where we're going. And every day, every Monday, I wake up and I'm like, what the hell is this week going to bring? Where are we at? And today, actually, we have a special show. We're talking to Nicholas Fett. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show today. You're the CTO of Tellor. There is the true path of decentralization. And how are you today?
I'm doing good. Yeah, no, it's really awesome to be here.
You started your career at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the CFTC.
Oh man.
I know, but you worked as an economist, and I wish I had that experience that you got before you jumped into crypto full time with Daxia, which was still is a decentralized derivatives contract on Ethereum, and now Tellor, which essentially is allowing for oracles and more, price data feeds, fuller decentralization on top of Ethereum. But what, kind of my first question, or what I wanted to talk about is when you got into crypto, when you first got into Bitcoin and your first foray into the industry, were there lessons that you learned from like working and studying as a research economist that you can kind of bring into our industry? Because a lot of people come into it thinking that it's just code based and it's just technology, and blockchain is technology that is maybe banking 3.0 or the web 3.0. But you and I know that it's not. We know that this is a fundamental shift because of the socioeconomic reasons.
Yeah. Well, I think like my views on cryptos have like really just evolved over the years. So I actually got into crypto before I even worked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so like I got into crypto back. I was doing an internship at a libertarian think tank and up in Pennsylvania, and we were into the Ron Paul 2012 campaign, if you remember that.
So many people got their start in Bitcoin during that, like one of the Ron Paul campaigns, like
I
Eric
know.
Voorhees, myself. Actually, that was one of the first times I met other Bitcoiners, was at it was an event in New Hampshire for Ron Paul.
Yeah, no, like so it was, like so I had gotten into that, and then as any good libertarian who couldn't find a job, you end up working for the U.S. government. And so I ended up taking a job at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it had sort of evolved from there because I was kind of into Bitcoin, and but like back then it was, like it was more just the narrative then was it was unstoppable money. It was like I remember you would like for me like I would always pitch to everyone like it was it's kind of like Visa, but there's not a 3% fee, and it's
Yeah, that
anonymous.
was you had
And
to,
then
yeah, in the original days, like just kind of attack the different aspects of
yeah,
what the industry was doing at the time. And now, fast forward years later, you're sitting in the room and you're explaining to people, yes, there's this Ethereum thing, and we operate a decentralized oracle on top of that. Wow, how the world has changed.
yeah, no, exactly. Well, and I think it's like just anyone, I think I'm like roughly the same age as you, and it's like, like back whenever you were in your like 20s, and then like even just your views on government and everything, being a staunch libertarian, and then how it like changes over time into, this social consensus based thing, as you had
Yeah.
said. Um, and yeah, so that was sort of like my path had sort of led me with Bitcoin. Whenever I started working at the CFTC, it was just CFTC was another government agency. They regulate derivatives, but they also ended up regulating Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as well. And I was there for kind of that switch.
Do you think that was the right idea? Do you think that now where we are, that was the best move? Why is Bitcoin regulated by the CFTC, really?
Yeah, so there's like technically there's you have securities which are regulated by the SEC, and then there's other like money, which is regulated by the Treasury, but everything else is deemed like a commodity, and it's just regulated by the CFTC, the commodities.
Could you see like a new commission that just regulates like digital assets and everything in and around it? And I don't know where the line would be, because where is the line now? We know, Bitcoin and crypto well, first of all, it's Bitcoin and crypto are two very different things
Oh
regulated by
man,
two, and then you have within crypto, you have derivatives of, you have oracles and utility. There's so many sub assets and sub
you
assets
know,
and different type of things
yeah, we,
that,
we could have a whole podcast on just this. It would
yeah,
be, yeah. I mean, I just politically, I don't see another agency coming up. Um, just because it's like everyone, so all the agencies, that's like the big fight currently. It's you want to be in charge of crypto because then hopefully they'll give you more money for your agency
yeah.
to regulate crypto. So like the SEC and the CFTC are fighting about it, similar to how the SEC and the CFTC were fighting for like swaps regulations, post the financial crisis. And um,
Do you think there's like disagreements within different um, regulatory bodies around just how things should be regulated in general? Um, because it seems to me that you have Jack from Twitter going, this weekend, just yesterday, saying that hyperinflation is coming, and then you have all these politicians saying, Jack, you shouldn't say that, you're scaring people. And then you have Janet Yellen's coming out this morning and saying, or yesterday saying, we need to tax unrealized capital gains, which I don't even know
sure.
how physically possible you do that. But it seems like there's like a shift, and there's a lot of within
Yeah.
governments. There's a lot of seismic. Like what is happening? Where are we going with all this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you could say like that's like the one benefit about um, agencies. It's that like I actually noted that working in the government a lot. Um, a lot of times you do disagree. There's a lot of disagreement internally. A lot of times that disagreement doesn't get out that often. Um, but there's definitely a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different ways that people look at it. Usually, like the more politically accepted answer will win.
Yeah.
But at least the people working at the agencies all try and generally do a really good job. So
So you
um,
so you're working at a libertarian think tank through your 20s. You're learning about politics. You're engaging with Ron Paul in that whole in that whole industry. And I, probably around the same age as you, I was starting to have a little bit of cracks, because as much as I believed and I loved the idea of a just and free society, I just didn't see how you can do it without the age old saying, join them and then change it from within. And just didn't really want to do that. I thought that it was like a multi-decade type of approach. Uh, and so when I first learned about Bitcoin, I was still a little bit concerned, because it was very much like end the Fed. Now, I'm not about ending anything. I'm not a violent person. And, even and it's not about being a violent person. It's when you start going down that road and you have a lot of followers, there's no differentiation between violence and non-violence. Your followers will never know the
yeah,
difference. You have to be very careful with the words you use. But I started to hear like transcend and build new financial infrastructure, build new data infrastructure, build a new internet, build new everything. Did you learn that while you were working at the government?
yeah. I mean, changing things is always really hard. Um, I think along those same lines, like it's that's like the one thing I guess I never really liked about the libertarian movement. It's always sort of very negative.
Yeah,
You
same
know,
thing. Yeah.
it doesn't come from like a positive place of change, really. It's more like a prevent, like the whole world's going to shit. Let's bunker down and we'll hold out and blow
I
them
was
up with
never
our
very
guns.
into that like thing. I was always that the world is pretty great. There's a lot of
Yeah,
problems with it. We got to make it better. We got to make it more equal. We got to, make that wealth gap smaller, which unfortunately has not been happening over, the larger the wealth gap, you have discontent. Like, just if anyone has any friends who have grown up in like a country with hyperinflation and things like that, there are a lot of socioeconomic things that really you start to see the cracks. For example, if the person who works at the restaurant can't afford the food that's being served there starts to become discontent and you lose faith in that system. We would always say, that we have trust and faith in the dollar because that bagel the next day costs the same as the bagel the day before. But what happens when there starts to be cracks in that whole thing? So we said, hey, let's rebuild a whole new one. But I want to jump into it because I know we can go down a rabbit hole here. What is Tellor, and why do you see there's a problem with
Sure.
like decentralization within our decentralized world that we're in now?
Yeah. So Teller is an oracle. To kind of explain what that is, oracles help get information onto a blockchain. So I worked at the CFTC doing derivatives, and I left because I wanted to do a decentralized derivatives platform to allow people to, basically bet on crypto prices in a completely decentralized way. And so you build these smart contracts on Ethereum, and you can imagine a smart contract where you deposit 10 ETH, I deposit 10 ETH, and if you say the price of Bitcoin's going down, I say the price of Bitcoin's going up. At the end of the week, we see, and this smart contract gives whoever all of the money in the contract. The problem is, well, who gets to say whether or not the price of Bitcoin went up or
Yes,
down?
that's the problem.
That's what's called the oracle problem. The smart contracts, just due to how they work, you have to be able to like replay them at any point in history. So if I run the smart contract now and you run it in a week, you should be able to see the exact same results. They're deterministic. So if you're calling like an external API, like the Coinbase API, you ask Coinbase, there's going to be a different price in a week. So you can't do that. And the way that the code does it is you have to have everything as an input. So basically somebody has to say what the price of Bitcoin is. Well, the problem is that if somebody can say what the price of Bitcoin is, they can control your contract, and it's centralized. Then you might as well have them holding the money, because
there's no point to doing it
right
at all. Yeah.
And so we wanted to come up with a way to decentralize oracles, and a lot of people have been trying to kind of solve this problem. Some people have been talking about it for a long time. Like some of the earlier people were like Augur or Gnosis, if you remember the old prediction markets.
Yeah.
They were sort of versions trying to solve the oracle problem. But the way that we solve it at Tellor, it's just really kind of simple. It's you put down 100 of our tokens, so like right now, like $5,000, and then you can say what the price of Bitcoin is. And if you lie, somebody can come and say you lied, and it goes to a vote, and you can get slashed, and you lose the money.
And there's a huge reliance on proof of work, correct?
Yeah. So when we had originally built it, this was like we wanted to actually build like the Bitcoin model originally. We sort of like moved beyond and added other features as well. But we were like, well, like how does Bitcoin work? Well, you basically have somebody solve this proof of work problem, and then you get to say what the order of transactions were, and you get to add it to the block. Well, what if you get to solve this proof of work problem, and instead of saying what transactions are in this block, you just get to say what the price of Bitcoin is. And that's how we built it. So originally, so you have like, it was just proof of work. So you would solve the proof of work problem, and you were the person that got to answer what the price was in the derivatives contract. And then the next block, somebody got to answer what the price was in the next requested price contract. And it was just sort of this simple solution that didn't rely on any sort of novel computer science breakthroughs to make it work.
This term oracle has been a flashpoint lately. It's one of the probably one of the topics that come up in conversation. A lot of people ask me about it because it seems like one of the ways that we can continue connecting the traditional asset world or the non-digital asset world with the digital asset world is through things like oracles. And the basic idea is, like you were saying, it's not just price feeds. If you have a, Ethereum smart contract, that's an insurance product that basically says if your flight is canceled, then the product will automatically pay you out like an insurance type of like, to pay for your next flight. But like you said, if the oracle saying if your flight was canceled can be hijacked, then what's the point? So in that type of situation, folks can come in and decide to be a part of that social consensus, stake a certain amount of tokens, to basically say, hey, this is what I believe the answer is, then you have enough people, you can create honesty and integrity. Is that the general idea?
Yeah, and just with time. So, similar to like in Bitcoin, like you don't have that instant finality. So like if I put on and say the price of Bitcoin is $63,000, if time goes on, like if an hour goes by and nobody has said, hey, that's wrong, it's probably right. And you have that kind of guarantee. And yeah, but the bigger piece as far as just the reliance on oracles, you see a lot of these DeFi contracts on Ethereum, a lot of these even, people are talking a lot more about bridging. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of Bitcoin right now that's sitting on Ethereum. And how they do that is you use an oracle. You send Bitcoin to an address, and then an oracle on Ethereum says, hey, they locked that Bitcoin. Now I'll mint you a synthetic Bitcoin over here on Ethereum. If that's a centralized oracle, all of that Bitcoin is sort of being held by a central party, and it's not being held by like this broad Ethereum, as decentralized as say Ethereum is. It's much more centralized, and that's what we're trying to sort of solve. Whenever we're because I think a lot of people see this multi-chain future, and they see this you are bringing on real world assets if you want to take
Yeah.
if you want to connect different chains, if you want to bring on real world assets to use as collateral in DeFi, you're going to need oracles for these things. And that's kind of why we got into it.
Sorry to interrupt your regularly scheduled programming, but I wanted to tell you guys that if you're using PancakeSwap, Uniswap, DYDX, SushiSwap, you're doing it wrong. You need to be using Paraswap, because Paraswap is a user interface, a decentralized smart contract platform that sits on top of all of these. And when you go to Paraswap or untoldstories.link/Paraswap, because they're refunding your gas, if you go there, then you'll be able to, on top of Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, and Polygon, look for the best prices for your tokens and swap and do everything in one predefined transaction on chain. Instead of having to do the approval to this token, to that token, to do all these different things, Paraswap does it all for you. It's decentralized. They just released their API version 5 that you can see everything. It's all open source. Very cool stuff. Untoldstories.link/Paraswap. If you're using any of the other decentralized protocols, you're doing it wrong, because you need to be using the routing, beautiful Paraswap routing system, and it's fully decentralized too. It's gorgeous. I'll talk to you guys soon. We're all used to investing in different types of cryptos, and we know that you can buy as little as $1 worth of any coin or token, but you can't do the same thing with stocks, bonds, and ETFs and all those other like traditional assets. And then if you can't do it all in the same place. Our newest sponsor, public.com, it's a super awesome community where they take your privacy seriously, and you can get in there and trade slices of crypto, Bitcoin, all different coins and tokens, and also stocks, bonds, ETFs, equities, and it's all done in the same place. What I love about it is that you have all these different investors you can connect with all walks of life, gain confidence, ask questions, get the big picture with curated themes, talk to everyone, but they don't get involved in the order flow. They're not selling your data to all these other middlemen. And we got a very good special for you, my listeners, today. If you go to public.com/untold stories and you start investing with $1, they're going to give you up to $50 in a free stock, a slice of a stock. That's all you got to do. Download the app, $1, you get $50 worth. Public.com/untold stories, valid for U.S. residents, 18 plus only, subject to account approval. And make sure you check out public.com/disclosures. There's no investment advice here. These guys have been doing and amalgamating all of these different types of community, stock, bonds, ETFs, cryptos all together. Make sure you check it all out. Public.com/untold stories. We're supposed to have had this very, very robust futures market right now. We're in this inflation, everything bubble type of thing that we're going through. Why aren't the futures market helping keeping prices of things like beef, pork, chicken, gas stabilized? And is that maybe now we should be looking towards having those things be speculated on in digital asset futures markets and in crypto futures markets using oracles, because you can decentralize you can decentralize the information and the data coming through of how much, how many chickens are being processed or coming through, like at different flashpoints and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, then goes into just more of a central finance question. It's like,
Yeah.
why aren't financial markets working as well as
Yeah,
they
basically
should
that's my
in
question
the
is why aren't
past?
they working?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like all theory, but it's, you get into this idea about, originally like what were like futures markets and finance, like that's like I hate financialization for financialization's sake. I feel like that's what crypto is at the moment. We're just sort of financializing things. We're not actually helping the end user at all. We're just sort
Financialize
of,
all the things. Yeah.
yeah, it's like this doesn't help anything. Like the original purpose of like the futures market is you have like a farmer who's growing corn, and he doesn't want to wait to the end of the year to sell his corn because he doesn't know what the price is going to be. So he'll sell it now on the futures market and then deliver the corn in the future. Um, and that was a way for him to sort of hedge his prices. He could have just sort of a steady income stream. Um, and people who were betting on the futures markets would have this ability to see where prices are going, what we expect the crops to be, and this information flow. But I think we've like sort of lost a lot of that. Like
Yeah.
what sort of information is actually flowing through these financial markets, especially basically it's turned into where, yes, there are these actual farmers and users, but it's mainly just speculators who provide no information trading against high frequency traders who don't care about the information. So you have it's sort of broken down any of those, the ability of financial markets to actually do their job.
You've said it so elegant. I can't even say that. Like just speaking of a play on words right there. But no, you said 100%. It's exactly right. You have these high frequency traders trading, and then you have these just big farmer like mega corporations that are supposed to represent, the data that the farmers are bringing in. And I'm like generalizing here, and it's them providing the data trading against. And so using So if we were to say, hey, let's build a centralized Oracle system with, pre-crypto, the farmers would say, well, what's the point? Because I still have to trust this mega company with the data that I'm inputting. But what if that farmer can come in and through a decentralized Oracle type system be paid for providing the most accurate data about the crop, about the weather? And then you can like bring all of that data in real time together in a decentralized way. It's like the real time freaking farmer's almanac or whatever,
Sure.
You can do some
Yeah.
crazy things. That's where I see this going.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. I mean, that's just definitely one of those things. It's what you do with the data in the long run that would actually change anything. Um, but no, I could definitely see people bringing more and more information on chain. I think some of the other pieces too. Whenever you're talking about oracles, we're excited to see some people moving away from just pegging things to the U.S. dollar. You can get a more decentralized CPI. You can have some things that actually have to do with
Really?
um, cost of living adjustments. Yeah, well, I mean, you can imagine like my old employer at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So how do you calculate the CPI? Well, it's just how much do people pay to live. Well, you could there's a lot of politicization around that. Some people agree or disagree with the number, but it would be nice if you could have more of like a global one, and you could peg, say, some of these stable coins too, and I think that would be
Wow.
something.
Like a CPI based stablecoin. I would
Yeah,
invest in that. That could be crazy. But you'd have to trust the data. You'd have to trust it.
you would have to trust the data.
So what if you had like, I mean, you can do this. Like this is something you can do now. Like what if you essentially took all of the users and said, "Hey, start telling us what the cost of like a Big Mac is in your country." Like and just once a day, just honest. Just, check drive by and if it doesn't change it's just or once a week or whatever. Maybe it doesn't need to be daily. You can create some sort of like you take that product and maybe like of course, bananas, some apples, coffee beans, I don't know, whatever things you need to live, bread, milk. I don't drink. I actually drank bad milk
Housing,
yesterday.
something. Yeah.
It was really bad. And I still can't I didn't get my smell and taste back from COVID yet, so I'm still
Oh man.
my wife is like, "That milk doesn't look very good." I'm like, "It's great." And I'm like, "Shh." It was real, but you can have, like decentralized data sources coming in. But you said something very important a second ago. You said, "Yeah, it depends what you're doing with that data." So yeah, how the data is being transferred and stored is very important. Privacy and being able to the end user being controlled over it. But what would you do with the data? Just trade and speculate like we do now? How could that affect the end user? I see. You tell me your answer, but maybe that farmer can now get a real time line of credit.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, you want to build things that actually help people, actually move things down the road. And then this is, this has, I would say like that almost has nothing to do with crypto or, it has to do with just like finance in general. Like, how do you actually use finance to help the smaller people? I'd say we've done probably a poorer job at that in crypto. Than, besides just speculating and letting people get rich. But yeah, like just building in some incentives to, having it actually help the people who are reporting the data. So, you could imagine like you're minting a token to the person who's actually reporting the data, or you're minting a token to the actual farmer. You're minting a token to smaller farmers only. You could have something to sort of help, promote smaller farms or something like that, and use the data to sort of measure how you're sort of distributing some of those tokens.
So you've moved to this different model now. It's called a reporter model. How is
Yeah.
it different, and how would it be more efficient?
This is just, very Teller specific. It's just, we were doing things where we had five different people who were reporting, each of the prices, and then we would take the median as the official value. And now what we're doing is we wanted to move to something where only one person had to report each value. And the reason is that gas costs on Ethereum are actually absurd.
Yeah, they're very
Um,
high.
so, we wanted a way that you could, we sort of reduced the amount of gas you have to pay, by a factor of 10, which is going to make the Teller Oracle much, much faster, much, much more sort of moldable for doing things, such as bridging, or such as, bringing on kind of real
Yeah.
world data.
Do you see a world where Ethereum moves away from proof of work? I know the can's been kicked down the road a few times,
Oh
but
man, I
I
think they'll
know.
get there eventually, but yeah, no, I remember like we went to like DevCon 2018,
Yep.
and it was like the whole thing was like we're just about ready to launch proof of stake, guys. Um, and it just never happened. But no, it is a really big system. They're taking it slowly. It's definitely been one of those things that they've been planning on it the whole time.
Why though? That's what I don't understand. Is it
So
now something that has to be done because it's been talked about and part of the roadmap? Is anyone
sure.
looking at it and saying maybe we should stick to proof of work? I mean, proof of stake is still so new, and not to say one is better than the other, but we know it works. Maybe we figure out how to optimize and make it better without just completely getting rid of the whole incentive structure that we've had for the past, 8 years. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah. No, I think the other thing too is I don't think the proof of stake switch is going to be as beneficial as a lot of people think it will be. It's not like we're 100xing the scale of Ethereum or anything like that. Like if that was the case, like you could say like,
Oh,
okay,
I see
well,
your point.
now like now it's worth it. We're gonna really make everything way, way better. But I don't think it's gonna be as big of a benefit, um, to the whole network. But yeah, I mean, like the way I tell it, like for most people, just operate with Ethereum the way it is now. Um, it's
Yeah.
probably not going to change anytime in the next few months. So just go with it, and then be open to switching.
Do you think these blockchains like actually need to scale as big as a lot of people think, like a Visa MasterCard level, or can you just have a lot of smaller chains and protocols and things like that that are growing at their own pace? Yeah, it's
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you'll have smaller chains too. Like it's, um, like I've always said, like I sort of view other chains as like, they're almost like forks of the main chain. So like I
yeah.
view, like Ethereum, you could consider like a fork of Bitcoin in a way. Like it's like the
Yeah,
people
basically,
who,
well, I mean, the
uh,
Ethereum raised money by selling, like they raised money in Bitcoin to
yeah,
launch Ethereum. So it's kind of the same things, and that should be how everything kind of is created from the other should be celebrated. It shouldn't be like, oh no, we came up with our own thing as our own thing. Like it should all be, even the ones of today, should
Yeah.
celebrate their history and where they kind of came from. And on that note, how do you get Tellor to be like agnostic? How do you get it to operate on multiple chains and blockchains?
It's definitely hard, but it's, the Oracle problem comes down to like a few things. Like with Tellor, you have somebody put some sort of money here, and then they're allowed to report and say what the value of something is, or what this transaction is. And it's a relatively simple structure, and we're working on sort of becoming agnostic in the same way, like, Uniswap, for instance. You could say like, you
Yeah.
could launch Uniswap on Ethereum, or you could launch Uniswap on Polygon, or you could launch it on
I
Solana.
see what you're saying.
And like it's sort of agnostic across. It's just sort of the standard. Um, in the same way, like I sort of see Ethereum being the standard in a way. Like if you've seen, like the EVM in and of itself is the standard now.
Is it portable now? Because the listeners of the show and a lot of my friends and things like that work at and have developed multiple different blockchains, and this seems like this would be a perfect fit, to have already, in the package right out of the gate. Is this something that is portable right now to other different types of like consensus algorithms and things like that?
Yeah. So I mean, well, we've just tested it like on the EVM chain now. We're working on just doing, we're still in our little Ethereum bubble as far as people who
Yeah.
reach out to us for projects. So we're slowly just branching out, and then we're gonna try and build it out from there. But yeah, I mean, if people are interested in helping us sort of make it, we're Solidity programmers. So if somebody knows,
How do they reach out to you? How do people get in touch with you?
yeah. So I mean, we're on Discord. Just Tellor.io is our website. Discord, Telegram. You can reach out.
And
Email.
we have in the show notes and on the tweet, we have your Twitter and
Yeah.
everything, and everything is there. Nick, thank you so much for coming on Untold Stories. Thank you for sponsoring this live edition, because we never get to do them, and I'm so excited when we get to. Everyone loves it, so it's a big thing. I hope to have you back on the show soon, and hearing how your Oracle is on 30 different chains. I'm going to give you 6 months. I
Okay.
appreciate you. I'll talk, and hopefully we get to hang out in a few weeks too. It'll be
Oh
awesome.
yeah, that'd be fun.
I'm very excited.
Cool.
Every time I
No.
have a guest on the show, I write down their location, because these are like people that I get to hang out with whenever we travel around. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I
No.
appreciate
Well,
it.
we travel to a lot of the events, so you'll have to.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. I'll see you later. Thank you
Yeah,
everyone for
thanks,
joining and
Travis.
watching this live stream, and check out Tellor and decentralized oracles, and understand the true path to decentralization starts with you. That sounds so corny. That's like the corniest thing ever. I know. I don't know where
I
I
didn't
made
write that, did I?
that. I'll see you guys later.